go live and get a little code. I'm going to take that code. I'm going to update the website so people can watch it live. And then we are going to rock and roll. Okay. Go live and get a little code. All right, then we're going to go like this. I'm going to go like that. It's fun. All the clicking around is just great. It warms me up for our talk. Okay, that's good. Now I'm just going to publish that. Here we go. So now whoever is watching us can go live with us. So this, my beloved people, is NDs for Truth. We've been gathering elders and wise NDs tonight, exemplified by Dr. Jessica Heyman, who is here for the second time. We had a blast the first time, and we're going to just check in again and chat and shoot the breeze tonight about all the stuff that's going on. And we also invite other special guests to open discussions of important topics in medicine and to address troubling trends during these times. We don't all need to agree on what the truth is, but we all agree we need to be free to express the truth, however that may be. Dr. Jessica, welcome back. Hiya.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me back. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great. It's thank you for being here as well. Let me just give a brief intro here about you, and then the folks watching can read the rest below. Dr. Jessica Heyman is a licensed naturopathic doctor in the state of Arizona, where she currently practices and resides in beautiful Sedona. I didn't realize that. That's actually a really great place to be. I didn't remember. She received her doctorate in naturopathic medicine from the Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine in Tempe, Arizona. And the rest I shall leave for you to discover and to be wowed, because there's lots of really great things there. So, all right. So we were going to talk about, I think a really good thing to jump in with today is the fact that Bastyr University, both the campuses in Seattle and San Diego, are mandating vaccinations for the students there and for the staff as well. Teachers, everybody has to be vaccinated. Had you heard that news?
So yes, a student that shadowed us months back, I believe it was last spring, had mentioned that she just texted us actually this week saying that she might be transferring to Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine in Tempe because of the mandate. I believe that if you elect to not have the vaccine, that you have to get testing done every so many days.
Every week.
The mask. What's that?
Every week.
Every week. And then you have to wear the mask, and and you're basically treated as if you have the plague. So I think it's very, very crazy to me how our naturopathic profession has kind of literally divided into two. It's like we're living in two different worlds in terms of the philosophy, the ideology. I don't know. It's just, it's completely just gone divergent.
It's totally split right down the middle, like a salmon gutted.
It is.
Yeah. And it's stark. Like the two sides are so obviously in dissonance with each other. This shows me just how infiltrated, how taken over, how bought and sold, however you want to describe it, our naturopathic profession, at the college level in particular, is. Bastyr,
Even Southwest College. I was just talking to one of my colleagues who, he's an amazing practitioner in Phoenix. We went to naturopathic medical school together. And he teaches at Southwest College. They're incentivizing the supervising physicians. If you get 80% vaccination rate, you get $100 and extra days off. And they're incentivizing.
Really?
Yes, and the students as well. They are incentivizing the students to get injected. If we get X amount % vaccination rate of students, then you get X amount of dollars for your graduation party or whatever. So they're monetarily incentivizing the students and the staff, the faculty, at Southwest College as well.
My personal most incentivizing temptation to get the vax is a free Krispy Kreme donut every day for the next year. That almost got me to take the vaccine, because did you hear that Krispy Kreme was offering a free donut every day for a year?
Yes, I heard about the wonderful, healthy, incentivizing programs that they were, pushing onto humanity. And it's very interesting. Like, if it's such a great thing to put into your body, why the propaganda? Why the propaganda? Why not make insulin free for type 1 diabetic children? Why not make chemotherapeutics free for cancer patients? If you want to save lives, if you truly want to save lives, why not make epinephrine free for people that, go anaphylactic to bee stings? I mean, if we're gonna go there, let's go there. Let's
Well, why not, while we're at it, why not make or give incentives to inject heroin or lines of cocaine while we're at it? I mean, they're no better or no more healthy for us. Another thing that shows this total degradation of our profession is there's a merger happening now in Canada, where Boucher in the west of Canada and British Columbia is now merged with CCNM. And CCNM is like the heart of darkness with all this stuff right now. They haven't gone as extreme yet as Bastille, but they're the president, Bernhardt, was for quite a while now. We're going to be coming on to a year soon, where he was going to be training naturopathic doctors to administer the vax, so the quote unquote shot, the COVID shot. And then they have also mandated vaccines for the students that are coming into the dormitories. So not all students, not all staff are mandated to take the vaccine, but they're starting to take these baby steps. And it's like anything else, you compromise people's integrity and their human rights and their Canadian rights or American rights just a little bit, and you see how they take it. And then you go more and more, as long as you can, as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Hitler didn't come into power overnight. It was didn't elicit his disgusting regime, to the nth degree right away. It was the tiptoe totalitarianism, right? Like, that's basically what it is that you just push the envelope, and then and then before long, people are bending the knee to this agenda. It's kind of like the fish in the boiling water, or the frog in the boiling water. It's like you put them in the water and you just slowly turn up the heat until the boiling point, and they're dead.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't understand. I've been trying to understand this for a while, how very intelligent people, like the people in naturopathic medicine, for the most part, are quite intelligent. They're educated. Maybe they're not so, wise to nature. I think that is a very good quality for a naturopath to have wisdom of nature. But not everybody has that. If they just wanted to go in and have a profession and just, make money as a natural doctor, they like the idea of being a doctor. They don't necessarily have the wisdom of nature, but they're intelligent. I think that there's some really, really high-tech psychological manipulation at play to really get people to be completely sold to the party line, to the mass propaganda that they've been implementing for a number of years.
Yes. So one of my closest friends is an MD dermatologist, and she fled, the Soviet regime in the early 90s. She's from Latvia, and she's been seeing this occur for years and years and years. this, she's, this is what it was, right?
Yes.
So people that have lived in a communist regime, like people that I know, we have friends that lived in, communist Romania, like they see it clear as day. There's no, bones about it. They know exactly what's going on. Whereas, there's such a level of naiveness here in the United States.
Yeah.
With people born here that like freedom, we're free, like there's
Yeah.
no working for it. You have to actually work for freedom, fight for freedom. It's not going to be just given to you.
Right.
And so,
especially with this Marxist globalist totalitarian agenda, which is encroached tremendously already into America. Canada's already like, forget about it. Canada's bought and sold.
It's so sad to watch. I know it's like a communist technocracy is essentially what we got going on here.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Just so that when I a few months ago, or I don't know how long it was, but I had Dr. Christy Fleetwood grace us with her brilliance on Ndft for Truth. And we were talking about stuff like along these lines. And then she basically said, we need a new school. And I was like, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind we need a new school. Well, when I heard the news about Bastyr mandating vaccines and all the students that are going to be completely like squeezed under the pressure of that, because if you're in second or third or fourth year, you've already invested X amount of dollars, X amount of time. You don't want to just bail out of the program. Okay, maybe you could switch over to Arizona. Maybe that's not feasible. But in any case, when I heard that, I was like, all right, we really need this school now, stat. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Christy and I have spoken a little bit, and I've written up the vision of that. She's been tweaking it. I'm going to be asking a lot of different doctors to take a look at it. We want to start a new school outside of this corrupted system. It's going to be our school, not their school. And when I say their school, I mean the government. I mean the governing bodies, the FDA, CDC, NIH, CNME, AANP, all of these corrupted organizations that have completely are obviously not in for the health of humanity. They're not.
No, they're all, I mean, the CDC is a vaccine cartel.
Yes.
And they're all money laundering organizations.
And they're all sponsored heavily by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yep.
And who knows what else, like underneath the surface. I've seen a lot of organizations and a lot of situations that are getting funding by the government in order to compromise certain situations, like farmers in America are getting subsidies at 1.5 times their amount that their crops are worth in order to destroy their crops, to put pressure on the people and to create, something towards a food shortage, because that is easier to control people when they're hungry.
Right. Well, that's the whole agenda. Yeah. Is that you control the power. So gasoline. So you dump, you dump gasoline, oil from oil tankers, and, or transport vehicles. There's been like videos circulating, about that happening, and then the crops. So you take away the food and the power supply. People are gonna start, getting desperate and doing desperate things that they might not normally do otherwise. And
right, which could include getting the experimental mRNA shot, because they might be coerced into thinking, oh, if I just get the shot now, I'm going to contribute to ending all this madness, and we could go back to normal.
No,
it's not going to happen.
But your compliance actually makes it worse. Yeah. So it's just very sickening to me to know that naturopathic medical schools, which are basically the counterculture medicine to the Rockefeller petrol-based medicine agenda from the 1900s, right? Like the
Yes.
whole of the Rockefeller, scientific method based, petrol based medicine, that why that was created was to snuff our medicine out and to create a level of control. Right.
Absolutely.
And like,
Absolutely.
if you don't know the history of naturopathic medicine and you're sitting and you go and sign yourself up for an experimental gene therapy injection, like from the sinister people that have been trying to snuff our medicine out for a century, that's what I don't understand. It's like, it's literally as clear cut as that. Like, why
I
can't
absolutely agree.
see that? We learn this. It's like one of our first classes in naturopathic medical school is the philosophy, why we're here. Why are we sitting here doing this job? We treat vaccine injured children. We treat vaccine injured patients. If a patient has an autoimmune disease, if a patient, children have asthma, atopy, eczema, like there's a reason why they have it. And most often than not, it's the vaccines can be that underlying issue in a lot of those people. Gardasil patients we have, that have POTS. How clear cut can it possibly get for people? It's like, you are bending the knee to this. It's like, you're either going to get the virus or you're going to get the vaccine. And yes, and virus, whatever it is, spike protein, God knows what it is. They haven't isolated it, but yeah. You're going to, yes. Could it be a really bad flu that could really be difficult to get through? Yes. I would rather choose that, get an acute illness than get a chronic disease or death from an experimental gene therapy injection.
Absolutely. And look at this, like let's say you do get the virus. If it is a virus, as you said, I'm not convinced it is. I'm not saying it isn't, because I don't know, right? I don't know. There's different theories floating around. But in our age group and our level of health and our nutritional, bodily nutrition, mental capacity, emotional health, the chances of us developing a very severe form, which is life-threatening, is next to nil. Next to nil. If you look at this, just look at the statistics. We're in the 99.99 something to have serious side effects, to have serious manifestation of the COVID. So why would you do that to yourself? There's so many people that are getting vaccinated today, even 12-year-olds. And I know personally, I know friends of the family, their 12-year-olds are getting vaccinated. They're not at risk. They're not at risk. And if you want to use the argument that, they're protecting the elderly in their families so they could go and hug grandma, but the organizations that are backing this crazy narrative are also saying it doesn't protect against the spread. So that doesn't make sense.
Exactly. They can be carriers, shedding the proteins. Not immune. What are you immune to? Nothing. You're never going to get immunity. you have a little less severity of symptoms. Is that that's like what they're trying to push now? That's not worth it to me. No, that's not worth it to me. And most of my patients, thank God, know that.
Yeah. Well, thank God. Yes, I agree. And here's something that I noticed. I think that the numbers that they're saying of the number of people that have been vaccinated is actually inflated.
Oh,
yeah, you do? Because I think there's a reason that they do that. They inflate the numbers. Yeah,
it's to drive like, oh, well, if 150 million got it, I feel left out. It's like the psychological game to them.
Exactly. It's like when you walk by an empty restaurant, you're like, no reason. I'm not going to go there. And versus if it's full and people look happy and they're like in there, you're like, you just feel drawn to be where people are at. That's a psychological principle that they're smart. You gotta hand it to them. They are pretty smart, the people that are behind this. So they have studied psychology. They know how to manipulate and they know how to get people. And they've even specifically studied, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but there were studies at Yale or Harvard, one of the Ivy Leagues, that looked at what will facilitate or reduce vaccine hesitancy the most.
Yes.
Threats, talk about, being there where everyone's in on this together. So that was part of it. Saving lives. Like they looked at every single slant and they looked at which ones work the best, and they're implementing those. So they know what's working in these times to get people to comply.
Yeah, it's a mind control operation essentially. But what's sad to me is like, you would think that naturopathic physicians would have, yes, the connectedness to nature, the connectedness to the higher consciousness, the connected to the love, the living in love and not fear. And it was just eye-opening to me seeing how many of our colleagues are not on that level. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but I'm just saying in terms of like the fear component, I was actually shocked to see how many colleagues are really fearful. And granted, yes, have people perished? Have people had problems? Yes, but what about, the 500,000 people that die of the flu every year?
Yeah.
I mean,
in the world, throughout the world.
Yes.
Right. And quite a bit actually in America. And of course, we know that the number of deaths of the flu completely disappeared last year, like miraculously.
Right.
Which is so obvious. For me, there's so many obvious red flags, obvious contradictions, obvious unscientific, statements and that are being propagated by the CDC and the FDA and the NIH, that a naturopathic doctor, you would expect them to discern that this is not the science I learned. I never learned that. This doesn't make sense about immunity. Like last year, they said, okay, they changed, the World Health Organization changed the definition for herd immunity to include the number of people vaccinated or to be around 70. And they were talking about herd immunity. Now they're not talking about herd immunity anymore. That's out the window. Like, so that's something that you don't need to be a rocket scientist to just put 2 and 2 together, that things are not adding up. There's something fishy going on. And if as soon as you have that that intuitive tug, then the whole thing comes crashing down. The whole house of cards.
Yeah, that's called going through your dark night of the soul.
Right.
And people just don't want to do it. When your house of cards comes crashing, people, that you've got to keep, it's like they'd rather put the comfy blanket of lies around them than look at the truth, because that would shatter their entire paradigm.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's my thought on the thing. But
that's painful.
Another scientism. Science is truth. Scientism is when you skew science to push a narrative, an agenda, propaganda,
Politicize. Yeah.
You're politicizing, you're dividing. I mean, we are not in science. We are in scientism here.
Yes.
And what's being fed in this narrative is a scientism narrative. And people, shut the news off. Dig deep in here. Like I said last November when we spoke, it's like, really, your answers are all right here. Something inside of you, this can't feel right to you.
Yeah.
Never going back to normal, whatever that means, whatever normal was. I mean,
yes.
But
it's painful to pull back the curtain and look through at what's really happening, to see the maniacs, the psychopaths that are pulling the strings, and to see how far reaching it is. Like, that's something that this last year and a half has really helped me realize, is how deeply infiltrated into every establishment the technocrats, the eugenicists, the Marxist globalists, call it what you will, like education, the entertainment industry, Hollywood, obviously politics, obviously medicine, but everything has been really tainted, so that the things that I've even taken for granted what I learned in elementary school simple basic ideas that all kids learn in our culture. I say our culture, North America, right?
Yeah.
Those could be wrong too. Those could be tainted purposefully with the intention of keeping us locked in small boxes so we're easy to control.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I agree with you 100%. It's like it's been a year of humility, like really, truly just humbling yourself to saying, you know what? And I always have said this my entire practice, like since I've been practicing, the more I know, the less I know. And that was a statement by Dr. Laskew, who was our pathology professor at SENM, a beautiful man. And I've always taken that statement and thought, you know what, this man, that's genius. That's exactly it. The more I know, the less I know.
Yeah, I think that's very good. And I have to confess, back in my earlier years, I really thought I knew certain things, and that is, part of wisdom and growing older is this very thing, is being able to say, I don't know, but I'm open to learn, I'm open to see, and I'm open to investigate. So
Yes.
there's certain things that I don't know, but there are some things I do know, at least I think I know now. Like I know something's going on. I know there's something not kosher happening. You could put together, you could see the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
But there may even be a bigger picture, bigger than that, that will bring a higher perspective that will, I don't know, negate that one. I'm open to all possibilities. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think when you start to pigeonhole yourself and your ideas into these constructs, it's limiting you and
Yeah.
your incarnation in this here and now time.
Yeah.
You're limiting yourself. Is it uncomfortable to get out of that, to really face that, hey, maybe I was wrong, maybe this is all incorrect, and what I know is not what it really is, and it takes a lot. It's definitely a spiritual change
Rite of
occur.
passage.
Right passage, like, yeah, it's a like I said, it's a dark night of the soul. You have to kind of like go through that process.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are so stuck in their program.
Yes.
And some folks I know we're probably going to kind of, they're going to start seeing this. They're going to start to awaken to this. Some folks, I don't think that anything we can do or say will help.
Well, I think there's this sort of like, as the wave comes in, the most sensitive people get it first. And then the bigger the wave, the bigger the manifestation of the tyranny occur, the bigger it gets, then the less sensitive people start to wake up. But they're more sensitive than the ones that are still asleep, and so on and so forth. As they tighten the screws, more and more people are going to be waking up, because they're going to be doing things that compromise their sense of how is this happening. And I think that will happen a lot with children when they start doing horrible things with children. They've already started. Like in Canada, a child 12 years old can get the vaccine without their parents' consent.
Yeah, that's sickening.
It's sickening. And we were talking about incentivizing. They incentivize the kids with ice cream.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's sick.
It's sick.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely amoral. It's disgusting.
It's disgusting for so many reasons. So that's got to make a person who's bought into the narrative, a certain percentage of parents are going to go, what the F is going on, that my 12-year-old can go and get a shot against my better judgment? I'm looking into the science, I'm looking at it. That's going to wake up a certain number of parents.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I think it will. What my prediction is that because it's experimental at this point through the FDA, right? The injections.
Yes.
but there's another wave, which I feel is spike protein shedding. I don't know if we've been aerosolized with spike proteins. I don't know, but there's more people getting respiratory illnesses, digestive issues, nausea, vomiting, here in Sedona. And, I feel like it was just in time for school starting, because school started last week. And so now, the schools will be centers of infestation. And so they'll probably end up shutting them down. They'll go back to the online, and then, the vaccine will be FDA approved and mandated to children. And I think that's going to take to wake people up. Is this control when it's fully mandated? Which, knock on wood, I hope we have some sort of event to wake people up before then. But I think it's going to it might have to get that bad in order for people to start realizing, like, we are in a totalitarian, technocratic, communist society.
Exactly.
And, New York, you need a vaccine passport. New York City, you need a vaccine passport to, like, go about your business in restaurants and gyms and indoor venues, whatever that means. But
coming to Quebec too. In the beginning of September, they're implementing it in Quebec. Absolutely. There are things happening that should make anybody question, but there will always be people that I think are so bought into the narrative, so brainwashed. So there was this Russian ex-KGB guys. He calls it they've been demoralized. Once somebody's been completely demoralized, nothing you tell them can bring them back to the awareness of truth. They're completely bought into that. And that there'll be a certain percentage of that. I don't know how many, maybe 10, 20, 30%. I don't know. But
I've read 6% are lost causes.
How many?
4 to 6% are lost causes.
4 to 6. Well, that's not too bad. It's a sizable number, but it's more hopeful. But yeah, the worse it gets, the more it's going to tug at people's heartstrings and maybe jostle them into awareness. Like, there's this case in Boston where there was this high biomedical tech exec mother. So she works in this biomedical tech. She's a high exec. Her 14-year-old child is being basically taken from her custody because they want to mandate a vaccine.
Medical kidnapping.
They're actually medically kidnapping this woman's child. And she's read all the literature. She's not a lay person off the street who's uneducated and just like poking randomly at any kind of answer. She's looked at the data. She knows what the data showed. And they're taking her child from her. That's just, I mean, it's evil. I can't even use a better word than evil. This is pure evil manifesting.
Pure evil. It's pure evil. And that's why I pulled my son out of public school. He will not step foot in another public school. Thank God.
For you.
Like this amazing private Waldorf school.
Oh, good.
Actually, like, going by actual Rudolf Steiner philosophy. I mean, he warned us like 100 years ago
about vaccines.
Yes, he warned us.
He says that it cuts you off from your soul, from your spirit. And I want to tell you something very interesting. A woman contacted me a couple of months ago. She had seen a follow your oath that I was doing with some other naturopathic doctors from Canada. We have this organization. It's like Ndft for Truth, but we call it Follow Your Oath, i.e., humanity. You've sworn, naturopathic doctors, to serve humanity and to do no harm and all this stuff. So follow your darn oath. Anyway, she contacted me and said she observed, she's psychic, and she observed when people get the experimental mRNA shot, that there's a strong block that goes right up to the crown chakra. And it's about a half inch to an inch thick, and it completely cuts a person off from their higher self, from the divine, the Godhead, from the wisdom of creation. So
Yes.
that the person is totally cut off. That's where it centers. And there's other places that it centers as well. And we were talking about graphene oxide. Well, we could talk about that in a bit. But exactly what Rudolf Steiner said is what's happening now to a very large degree. People are being cut off from their higher selves.
Mm-hmm. You know what I find interesting too is that you have people Googling like Rudolf Steiner. Well, you go to Google, you're going to get, oh, he was a Nazi, he was this, he was that. No, he was against like this control mechanism, you know, the control, the powers that be, like the head of the snake. He was
Yes.
against the head of the snake.
Yes.
And people don't understand that, you know, but you go to people go to Google and say he was a Nazi cult leader and all this stuff. But
right.
really,
I mean, it's just as true as the smear campaign against any of these amazing medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, any of the scientists that are standing up against the tyranny. They're all having their, you know, being thrown under the bus, canceled.
Yeah.
And you know, smear campaign against them.
Totally. Because I mean, the foundation of the Waldorf philosophy is, you know, free thinking. A free thinking child to question everything.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and the public, the public indoctrination centers called, you know, or public school system is essentially the cult and the indoctrination center. You know, it's like, this is it. This is the way it is, you know, whereas with the Waldorf, it's like, well, what do you think it is? You know?
Right. Exactly.
That's not conducive to creating slaves. That's not conducive to slaves.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we've already mentioned the word evil. We've already mentioned, now you're talking about slave. I really think that what we're facing here is, if you look at if you take a step back and you look at all of the arms of the octopus, you know, one of the arms is COVID and the V, the false vaccine. Mm-hmm. Another arm is climate change. Another arm is the racial tensions that they're trying to create. Another arm is food shortages, forest fires, which God knows they probably are contributing to that as well. You know, I don't know. But yeah, you look at the whole picture and you see, okay, all right, what's happening here? There are a handful of psychopaths, the technocrats, the global elite, the heads of major corporations that are uber wealthy and powerful, they believe they have the right to rule over humanity like God, and they desire to do so. They desire to be like God. Because when you have a gazillion dollars, money is nothing. Money is like dust. What do you want when you have a gazillion dollars? What's next? Right.
Yeah. What's the next agenda?
Yeah, it's power, it's control. You want to be able to put that money, which is kind of power in a way, to be able to control, to make yourself feel better because your daddy didn't pay you the time of day or something. Some wound is at play there for sure. Some disconnect.
I really think it's spiritually bankrupt, like Luciferian agenda is essentially what it is.
Yeah.
There's no soul. It's a soulless agenda. So you're extracting the energy from the souls of humans.
Yes.
To get it a little more esoteric, you know, that's how I kind of see it. It's a spiritual war. It's
100%. It's the biblical Gog or Magog. It's the war to end all wars. It's the war of the end times.
It is.
Here, what I was saying before is that, you know, I'm looking at everything, re-examining everything. And one of the things that I've noticed, and it's subtle sometimes, and it's also like a hammer over your head other times, is like, it's not cool to talk about God in scientific circles. It's not cool to bring God into the picture, the divine, Christ, or whatever cosmology that a person believes in that links them to that divine spark that unifies all people.
Yeah.
It's not cool. It's like you apologize if you ever talk about it, or you just don't because you're not comfortable. People say, you know, oh no, God, that's personal for me. I don't talk about that. So we don't really talk about it. But in seeing what's happening here, it's almost unmistakably biblical. Like there's crazy people that are so straight into the darkness. What they're doing to children is just like, with the vaccines, that's a minor form of it, although it could get pretty serious. You know, with
Right.
the child trafficking and all the crazy stuff, like this is biblical prophecy coming to we're bearing witness of this today.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that is also another mind control technique about not bringing God or source or the higher power, by taking that out of, the society, I think, or making it taboo, or it's just, it's all BS.
Yeah.
By kind of denigrating that, it's mind controlled a lot of folks into like disconnecting from their higher self and and the possibilities beyond when we leave this incarnation, when we leave this body.
Yes.
People think nothing happened, and I think that's when it gets good.
Yeah.
We're here in this
Right.
incarnation for a reason,
We're on
and
the what? Sorry.
we're here in this incarnation for a
Oh,
reason. You know,
100%. And this time. Yes.
yes, like our we are so potent as human beings with these souls,
Yes.
and to just slough that aside and say, oh, we're just walking around, we're just rats destroying the earth, and we're
Right.
in like to we're not. And I think that people that are scientific, it's like they cut off that spiritual aspect because it's not what they've been programmed or told to think. That
Yeah.
that's basically, I don't know, my
No,
two cents.
100%. And this is a modern version of science, like what you're calling scientism. It's a modern version of science because some of the old scientists, the big names like Einstein and Faraday, and obviously Nikola Tesla, and I mean um, uh, Ohm's law. Who did Ohm's law? Is it Faraday? Frequency. Anyway, they were uber spiritual. They understood a unified field behind all of creation, that there's an order that is the higher intelligence of creation.
Yes.
Today's scientists, with some exception, but certainly in peer-reviewed publication, different publications, let me just put it like that, it's you don't bring that you can't bring that. So science has been divorced from the divine, from the creator. And I even remember, like, in certain circles amongst naturopathic peers, like mentioning something spiritual or about God or some biblical quotation, getting like admonished, like my hand slapped or criticized for being that way. Like it's a bad thing.
Right. Like you're brainwashed. Yeah. No, I definitely see that in our profession. And I feel like naturopathic medicine is so close to God. Like it is
Yes.
godly medicine, really. Do I use pharmaceuticals when I need to? Yes, I will. But for the most part, like it is the closest you can get to nature and God in trying to help a human achieve their their health goals, their
Yes.
true health.
Yes.
So yeah, I do feel as though, in scientism, and peer-reviewed journal articles and the scientific method. I mean, what people don't understand is that's all bought and paid for by an agenda.
Yes.
It's looking for a certain outcome to produce a certain an article to try to sway medical practitioners to do certain treatments, or you know what I mean? There's an agenda behind it.
Well, to sell the drugs, essentially.
To do whatever. Yeah. So it's not an objective, like most peer-reviewed journal articles are not objective.
Right. And we've all been brainwashed. We've all been manipulated into, even as a naturopathic doctor, you know, I know what I know and what I love in nature, but I've seen in myself this sort of, in my mind, organizing a kind of a hierarchy to say that, well, I need to prove myself to that way of thinking. So even though I don't agree with that way of thinking, you see a lot of naturopaths go, I need to prove myself to that because that is the authority on what science is and on what biomedicine is. And that's not true. Exactly. You brought up the science. Go ahead. I'll hold my thought. You go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. Yes. I think when you stop bending the knee to that, you know, to that agenda and start getting your, you know, finding the own power within yourself, your own truth within your own self, you know that you don't need to do that. I don't need any recognition from an MD or, you know, to know what I'm doing is good and right and true.
Exactly.
What I'm doing is good and right and true. I know every day I come in my office and I say a prayer to help my patients. And I know that I'm going to do the best that I can for them with the skills that I have. And I don't care to have approval from any MD. I just want the approval of my patients. That's
absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't give a crap about whatever, you know.
But the proof is in the pudding.
It is.
The proof is in the darn pudding. You know, Dr. Fleetwood, I love how she says miracles. I like she's really awesome with that. Like medical miracles. I'm like, wow, this medicine is awesome. Our medicine is awesome. There's some very simple things that we can implement with our patients that are life-changing. You know, good nutrition, good water, good rest, good air, exercise. Just do those 5 things.
And you get them out of the oldie building. I mean, you know.
Yeah. I mean, like looking at these important factors, like massively important. But then here again, I'm talking about the influence that has penetrated so deep into society that a person will put pressure on a loved one to go and get chemotherapy because they're scared of that person having cancer, that they have to do that. How on earth did they so successfully manage to manipulate our society into believing that that's a good idea? You know, as the first thing to do, you know, there might be some aggressive cancers that if you had a means of just burning the heck out of it as a last resort, maybe. I'm going to say maybe. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. Maybe I can understand. But a lot of people, when they're diagnosed with any kind of cancer, even non-aggressive cancer that will respond to some nutritional changes, cancer that can be, you know, some detoxification and, you know, meditation, self-reflection, expressing your anger, getting your anger out, can turn it around quickly. But families put pressure on their loved ones because they've been manipulated and convinced that the only real medicine is the petrochemical, Rockefeller-inspired and supported conventional medicine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also brings us to the brainwashing of fear of death. The fear of death and how manipulated people are. You know, they will, like this whole year and a half, they would rather not live and be isolated from family members.
Yeah.
Because of the fear of death.
Yeah.
You know, the fear of death does a lot for people. It is a motivating fear is the driving force behind all of this.
Yes.
And it's mind blowing to me. It's like, if you know, when you have a greater sense of, you know, self and God and higher power and the afterlife, you're not going to have that fear of death. And that's what the societal construct wants you to do, is cut that off.
Yeah.
Right. They don't want you to have that belief system, because the fear is such a controlling and manipulative force upon humanity. And so I think that's what, like, for me, whenever I'm ready to, not that, like we've said this before, I think in the last time, when I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. Like, yes, I have a 10-year-old, but you know what? I know on the other side, my potential is going to be even greater.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't, they think I'm a nut job for thinking that.
I think it's beautiful. There are some religions that are based in this principle, like Shintoism, particularly in Japan, has this very principle of facing death at all times. Like, basically, one is to live with death in their heart, not like you want to die, but understanding that we have no control over our lives in that regard. And so death can come at any time, and therefore live to the fullest. Like, when you fear death, you don't live. When you embrace it and surrender to the idea, then you live to the fullest.
1,000%. Yes.
Is it Tim McGraw and go skydiving, live like you were dying, that kind of that song. I like that song. It's true. It's true.
It's just, this whole year and a half has been sobering to know, like, how ingrained, again, the propaganda for fear of death is in our society. Everybody's so scared, and it's
and that's why they're getting a shot, which is much more likely to kill them, or in the very minimum to diminish their ability to live life to the fullest, which is to be alive. Of course, their heart's beating and they have brain activity, kind of. But to be alive is to feel that sense of a wakefulness at the spirit soul level. That's to feel alive, and to marvel in the beauty of a thunderstorm, or when it's raining, or the animals that grace this earth, or all these beautiful things. Like, I'm concerned that people that are going to become more and more vaccinated are going to be more and more disconnected, and they're just going to be totally plugged into the sterile world of the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's when you disconnect from nature, and you disconnect from God, you disconnect from your higher self, and it's very sad. I mean, like, I'm so sappy that, like, we grow these little donut peaches, not donuts, but donut peaches. They look like little donuts. And when I was eating them, I'm just crying, going, thank you, God, for this abundance, this beauty, this, to be connected to nature in that way is a beautiful thing. And I truly think, like, it's all a ploy to move you farther and farther away from nature and God.
That is the Luciferian thing. Like, I sometimes get these flashes. I think they might be inspired, or just some ideas that I'm connecting in my own mind. But I imagine that they sat there and they said, what can we do to get people to disconnect from their higher self and from God? Well, there's this molecule, there's this substance that we could create that will, scatter their brain waves at a specific frequency, in particular at the frequency of the crown chakra, which connects us to the divine. And that's what that psychic saw, that the graphene oxide, or whatever it is, spike proteins, is clouding up that connection and the connection to one's heart, and will just give them all these incentives to use these smart, they're really dumb phones, right? But people are so like in their smartphone that they're not even like paying attention. There's a rainbow going on, and my family, we're like freaking out because it's so beautiful when you see a rainbow, and people are like, Oh yeah, a rainbow. You know, like back to looking at the phone. It's the zombie apocalypse is upon us.
It's here.
It's
I
here. Did you see? I had an amazing talk last week with Dr. Christiane Northrup.
I saw part of it. I love that lady.
She's wonderful. I love her too. And she was mentioning, she's like, it's not for nothing that all of our, there's so much programming around zombies. And, you know, she mentioned vampires too. Vampires have another interesting role in all of this, but there's so much, how many movies about zombies have we seen and TV shows?
I know.
It's weird. And even the CDC, you know, the CDC has that zombie apocalypse kind of.
Yes. Yes, I read that.
It's weird.
I mean, they're definitely, as they say, they have to show their sinister agenda to us before they implement.
Yeah. Tacit agreement. Tacit agreement. They are, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons. And there's different alignments. So if you were like a paladin, like a holy knight, you're like lawful good, you know? And if you were like this, like gross, like chaotic creature that just killed, that you would be chaotic evil. But these people are lawful evil. They live in a law that they believe is important, and that has to do with the respect of a person's freedom to choose. Now, their idea of respect of a person's freedom to choose is not yours and mine, right? But they believe that if they tell people what they're doing and people don't rise up and say absolutely not and protest, that they take that as tacit agreement, right? They take it as agreement by non-opposition.
Yes, which then they take the next step, right?
Yeah, the next step, exactly, and the next step, and you know, I think that there's certain people that are operating within the bubble that there's expectation of, you know, the COVID safety measures. So some people are very like gung ho, and they might step too far and violate people's freedom to choose. That's a mistake. Even in the books of the psychopathic Luciferian agenda people, that's a mistake. The game is to get people to choose their slavery and to choose the totalitarian state. I don't think it can be forced on humanity. And I think they learned that with Nazi Germany. The Nazis did a pretty good job initially of taking over most of Europe. I mean, most of Europe fell to the Nazi regime.
Mm-hmm.
But when you push with force against humanity, humanity pushes back. So you have to do it covertly. And by getting people to choose their own slavery, and that's what they have to do. So I don't think, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I think they're really, because why didn't they just come all out and say, okay, everybody's mandated to have the vaccine? They have to make people want this.
Right. Yeah, they have to try to get some compliance first. Yeah, because if they said, oh, it's all mandated, then people would flip out. But if we do, like you say, you know, like the tiptoe.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Then it's just more, it just becomes more and more rates, being removed.
Yeah.
As
and they also,
hey, well, if you're not going to get it, you can't dine in New York City. You can't, you know,
and can't travel.
Or people to bend the knee to the agenda, you know.
That's right.
It's just, you know, the more and more that they squeeze down on us, and then, oh, we have an outbreak, whatever that is, you know, probably just the fact that we're going through what's called, vaccine failure at this point, you know, right. Is being the most highly vaccinated country, and yet COVID has exploded there. So,
right. And all the there's a few countries that have had very high vaccine percentage in the country, and they're having a lot of outbreaks now that they're calling COVID, but it's a variant that's probably caused by the people being vaccinated and creating weird mutations in the virus because their immune systems are not fighting these viruses and living in these hosts. They're morphing into weird variants. That's one possibility. Yeah, it's just one possibility.
They're setting it on to unvaccinated folks as well. And
say that again.
Shedding the spike proteins onto unvaccinated folks, because that's what they're genetically manufacturing. Like in Israel, they all got the Pfizer vaccine.
Yeah.
So they're genetically manufacturing the spike proteins, which they're supposed to mount an immune response to create immunoglobulins against the spike protein. And then they're like,
which doesn't happen.
Right. But in essence, if they're manufacturing spike proteins, the toxin, essentially, that's
the thing that is pathological.
And it's expressing from your body, like, what do you think's going to happen? We're going to have,
kidding.
No
kidding. And there's many different people that have said this in different ways. Canada's University of Guelph vaccinologist, immunologist, Dr. Byron Bridle has said that we made a huge mistake. The spike protein is the pathology, and that is what's pathological in COVID, the spike protein. So yeah, absolutely. And I guess what we have to do right now, because we're having this chat, right? So you and I see eye to eye. We've done our research. We've done our homework. What's next? Like, what are you seeing for the future? What do you want? Oh, actually, hold that thought. I want you to address that in a minute. But you brought something up which I wanted to ask you specifically about. You said when people comply, it makes it worse. It makes the whole situation worse. Tell me in your own words, in your own thinking, how does, when people comply with, I'm just going to get the vaccine, or I'm just going to mask up, or I'm just going to whatever, how does that make it worse? Just in your own words. I was curious to hear that.
Well, it's basically telling the overlords of control that it's okay. This is all okay. Take away my freedoms. Take away my sovereignty. Take away my medical individuality. Basically what you're telling the powers that be is that if this is okay, you are consenting, essentially. So every time someone complies with these idiotic rules, you are basically enslaving humanity forever.
Yeah, right.
You're saying,
oh my gosh, like dystopian future.
I want to be controlled. I want to be enslaved. I want the security of government. And I mean, all of these tactics are clearly communist tactics.
Yeah, right. Communist and the far left and the far right, they have this weird way of bending around and like shaking hands, right? They become the same thing. Nazism and Stalinism end up being the same thing. Ultimately, even if one's coming from the far left, this Marxist idea of no, everybody's equal and all this stuff that takes away people's right to own land and right to make their own income and all these crazy things. It's the same as Hitler. The ultimate outcome is very, very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my gosh, I truly wish that people would wake up now. And I think they will. I think people will wake up the more and more, as we said. And I appreciate this opportunity to be talking about this. Not that we have to close right now, but I just want to appreciate this talk that we're having. Even if it just bolsters somebody's confidence in themselves a little bit. So that little bit that their confidence is bolstered helps them when they face the next enticement, right?
Right. Oh, totally. Because I patients that have, said, I'm not getting this vaccine, I'm not going to do it, maybe slightly awakened, not completely there, but, I'm not going to get it. Well, people are getting some sort of respiratory illness around here, some sort of gastrointestinal illness around here, so they're getting scared, right? The fear sets in.
Yeah.
And so then I had a lot of patients come to me in the last 3 weeks, like saying, well, maybe I should get the vaccine. I go, I thought you already had made your decision. But it's, they're really, really just wearing people down, just day by day by day.
And states as well, governors and senators. For instance, Arkansas just caved to now the governor is pushing vaccine mandates and pushing the vaccine agenda, which is very surprising because I thought Arkansas was like a very free thinking kind of land.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
The way I see it, it is a war of the mind. It's psychological warfare. It's the war of the end of days. And it's not just about, it is about resisting. And those who resist the longest win. I think that's a terrible simplification. But in a sense, like, it is going to be about that. Like, unless you just really do the most intelligent thing that I think anybody could be doing right now is getting a piece of land with other like-minded people, growing your own food, learning to generate your own energy, and being non-dependent on the system.
Mm-hmm.
The system is meant to keep us enslaved, and so is the education system. Don't you think we should know and really emphasize in our constitutions how important it is to know our sovereign rights? It doesn't take a lot to teach that. You could have one person do it in a couple hours or an hour in one.
Most people don't even know what the Bill of Rights are here. The first 10 amendments of our Constitution. People don't know what
because that's implicit. That is purposeful to keep people ignorant, because if they knew the truth, then they would know their rights and they would know they were divine beings and all that good stuff that we're talking about here that you're mentioning.
Yeah, people choose to live in willful ignorance, I guess. I mean, it's that simple. And yes, I mean, in terms of finding a collective of souls that you resonate with, it's so important. That's literally one of the few things, other than my family, that have been keeping me going, is that I have a collective of women and their families here in Sedona that are the most beautiful, wonderful souls you've ever met. And we know that we all are on the same page, that, we will protect each other till the end.
That's so important. That helps a lot, because it's hard to go through this stuff alone. Doubt can get you.
Exactly. Because if you don't have a group that you can lean on, it becomes very self-defeating, and I feel like you can become demoralized and fall into the agenda, even more so. So it's like you have to surround yourself with like-minded individuals. So
yes,
it was crazy how all these women, like, we knew of each other in town, but as soon as all this happened, it was like a magnet drew us all together.
Amazing. It's like a divine energy there. It keeps you together. A person needs to be very strong and very confident in themselves to go it alone. And I don't think that we need to go it alone, although they're trying to separate us, right? That's another thing. They're trying to eliminate that exact social gathering, which makes people strong together. Now, I want to just tell you a little bit about the new school vision that I have and that I'm working with people like you. Basically, it's going to be a kind of a community college, but literally a community where a student, this is the plans for the future. Right now, because we want to get this launched pretty quick, I think we're going to have to do it online before we get any land before we get the stuff. But we want to have a certain amount of land where students come and they live and they learn to grow food permaculturally, aquaponically, biodynamic farmingly, and doing beautiful connection with nature, eating the healthy food, learning the good naturopathic medicine.
Yes.
The clinic helping good naturopathic medicine. And for this to be the community that helps these naturopathic students and doctors survive and thrive during these times when we need to be self-sufficient. So it's going to be satisfying the purpose of maintaining the spark of truth and love and godliness in naturopathy. And it's going to be fulfilling the purpose of helping us survive and to be self-sufficient in these times.
Yes, I think that's beautiful. I love that. Yeah. I mean, our schools are captured organizations.
They totally are. The cat is out of the bag. There's no question about it. You know, I kind of was like, I remember I was teaching a lot. I was traveling around the different colleges in US and Canada. I was talking to students, and I remember hearing myself say, this is several years ago, from 2 years on before, you know, I suspect that there's some influence there of the pharmaceutical. I remember saying that I suspect there's some influence there, but there's no question about it now. There's no way that we could stray so far into idiocy. And
I used to be naive and think, oh no, there's no pharmaceutical hold over our naturopathic medical schools. Boy, I think I'm wrong. There has to be money going in there.
Yeah, there is. There has to be a lot of money going in there. And, you know, I saw this video, you may have seen it as well. It was called the, oh gosh, I was talking about it with Dr. Northrup last time. It was the, Who Stole America? Who Stole America? It was about the election fraud and how the Chinese Communist Party, for one, was heavily involved in rigging the election so Joe Biden, their old friend Joe, could get into power, because then their agenda to just their war by any means agenda is very easy. I mean, if America just opens its doors and says, come on in, you know, take us over mentally, economically, you name it. Well, then that's what that movie, I think it's called, Who Bought America or something like that. Anyway, in it, there's this guy from the Chinese Communist Party talking, and he's saying that, you know, it's not that complicated to get people to do what you want in these countries that we're trying to influence. You give them a wad of cash. And if that doesn't work, you give them 2 wads of cash until you meet their price. I mean, the Chinese Communist Party is incredibly wealthy and money is not an issue. So, I mean, if they could buy people that way, that's the first course of action. The second course of action is, you know, threat. You threaten them. And that probably would work, I think, with a lot of people, if not most people.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, probably 80 to 90%, maybe higher, of our politicians are either bribed or blackmailed. Yeah.
Even so high as the Supreme Court justices. Like, I was pretty
1000%. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. I was like,
oh yeah.
I was like tentative with that statement. You're like, oh yeah, 100%. But that's terrible. That's the highest law in the land. The highest law in the land is corrupt.
The corruption in society is so deep and dark and dirty. I think if the average American realized how bad it was, they would flip their lids.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that it's becoming more and more revealed. So evil, I think, it better serves itself by working covertly. I was mentioning, like with Dr. Northrup, that evil is like fungus. It thrives in darkness. When it exposes itself, it's going to shrivel itself up. It works better under the wraps. So it works better when people don't know what it's doing. And they've been revealing their hand so obviously in the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, it couldn't. I mean, the vaccine mandates are really what kind of woke me up in 2019. Like California fall with the, the educational or vaccine mandates for public education.
Yeah.
That really just struck a chord in me. And, when you start to dig and look into your own legislators and such, you realize how intertwined they are and bought they are, these lawmakers. And it's so sad. It's so sad. But I do think that, yes, we have to see the darkness. We have to realize what we're up against in humanity to know how much light we need to exude.
Yes, 100%.
You gotta like all that darkness, that crevice darkness, deep-seated darkness needs to rise to the top, and it needs to be visualized and by humanity.
Yes.
They have to see it all.
They have to see it all.
Change.
Absolutely. It has to manifest. Your tipping point was that obviously didn't worry a lot of the other people in California, but there are other tipping points. I think, some tipping point might be when people start wearing like devil costumes or something, when they come out to like give speeches about their plans for their community or something. I'm being a little cheeky, but when you watch some of the videos like of entertainers these days, and like there are it's pure demonic symbolism. When you watch the Olympic Games, there have been demonic rituals that have taken place right in the public eye. Also the Super Bowl entertainment is there's always demonic symbolism in those shows. And it's just really, what was that event? I forget. It was a World Health Organization where Lady Gaga was like hosting it. Do you know what I mean? This is
God, yes, where it was basically like a COVID event.
Yeah. Like hello, watch Lady Gaga's videos and look what the symbolism she has. Plus she's putting blood in her, her perfume, her own blood, and just weird things that she does. And now she's the poster girl for the World Health Organization. Like,
she's just a puppet. I mean, she's just being used to try to sway the masses.
Of course.
That's basically it, is these puppets that are put on pedestals in the media, Hollywood, politicians. They're all just puppets of the narrative.
Yes.
And they're all controlled.
Yes, they're all controlled. I agree. So I wanted to say a word about facing the darkness within as well. So we have to recognize that each of us has our own darkness, our own inner demons.
Totally.
And the last thing that we tend to want to do is to go there. But when you face your own death, not you don't try to kill yourself or anything, but you recognize that you at some point are going to die, and you think about that and you surrender to it. When you realize that there is darkness within and you face that, all of the facing of the darkness benefits the person tremendously with strength and clarity and discernment. When I first really realized and accepted the presence of evil, my discernment for that which is godly and divine in God's kingdom massively augmented. Before, I was kind of new ageily allowing this big soup of the mishmash of good and evil to be swirling together as one big happy family.
Right.
We need to face these things, and that will benefit each of us individually and also our culture. So it's good. It's good in the sense that the evil is manifesting itself. It's showing itself, and humanity has to wake up and look at it. Stop denying it.
Well, what I call it, what we have a lot of here in Sedona are spiritual bypassers.
Yes.
Lots of new age spiritual bypassers. You know, they don't want to see the dark. It's all love and light and it's all good. And,
yeah,
you know, stay and like, no, bullshit. Get your shit together. Like, you have to do the work. This is not all love and light and happy. Like, you've got to look at this darkness. You got to go through that visceral, soul wrenching process.
Yes.
You know, that's the real work for, you know, ascension and for getting to those higher levels of consciousness.
Exactly. And to learn to really trust and listen to the self. If you really trust and listen to yourself, you're on the path for good and real things. And that's what's going to make you a good doctor, provided you're a naturopath. If you're just a layperson, good at whatever the heck you're doing. But then as you're doing that process, you are invariably going to face the parts of you and us that are wounded, that are hurt, that are misaligned, that have been psychologically manipulated beyond our conscious awareness. All these little aspects, there's so many of them: familial, genetic line, religious beliefs that are limiting, that have been, there's perversions through religion, obviously, as well. All these things that are coming up, we have to take them on one by one with grace.
Yes, with grace and humility.
Yes.
Humility. You have to have humility. Yeah. I mean, my mom has been trying to wake me up for God knows how long. My mom's completely online, and
nice.
She, you know, I think I've told her I'm sorry so many times. Like, Mom was right. I'm so sorry. You know, and having
that's humble.
What's that?
That's being humble. That's you.
Yes, I was wrong.
You're admitting your mistake.
Fallible.
Like,
yes, I'm a fallible human. Like, yeah. So you know, being able to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I think humans can't go there. They still have, you know, they can't, it's too crushing to their construct of our society, which is all a man bullshit thing anyways. We know
right
that.
To their pride or their ego, but I've noticed that when I say I'm sorry and I was wrong and you were right, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Isn't it like 9 times out of 10 or even more than that? It's the end of it. The person doesn't usually like dig you for a while about it, you know, unless they're
like, I'm so happy that you're, you know, but I have said I'm sorry to her many times in the last year, you know, year and a half, 2 years, whatever, just because she's my mom, and I would denigrate her viewpoints and this and that and think she was it's lesser, and you know, and that was so wrong of me and awful. And but my mom's awesome. I love that woman.
Well, usually, I mean, ideally, those people who are more awake are also more awakened to the true nature of who we really are, and that is love. So they ideally are more loving and forgiving, and therefore can have that compassion for people who are making the mistakes they're making.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my limits of my compassion have certainly been challenged with some people that I'm very close to. But ultimately, I have maintained decent relationships with them, even though they slumber in a deep fashion. Yes. But I think it's a really good thing. It's like pulling off a Band-Aid. It hurts, but the quicker you do it, the sooner it's over. Just get your shit out of the way. You confess, you apologize for having been asleep or wrong or whatever, And that's the end of it. Then you move on into the greener pastures.
Yes. Yeah. I think humans don't like to admit when they're wrong.
No, it's true. It's
It's the
true.
ego. It's the ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And, really, it's like, moving into that love frequency. It's, oh my God. And getting out of the fear, it's so liberating. I mean, it's just freedom right now for me. Like with all this chaos going on in this 3D world, in this crazy world, like I feel peace in my heart because I know I'm free.
Yes. Good for
I don't
you.
pay taxes, but I mean, in terms of my soul, on a soul level, like I know
Yes.
I'm free. I know that I'm free, and
You have a clean conscience.
I
You have
have a clear conscience. Yes.
you're in harmony with your integrity and with your inner swayings. I feel the more things are tightening. So first of all, for me, it's so obvious that humanity is okay. There's nothing going on that's really that serious or terrible. We need to fix the problem. There's a problem, but we're okay. We don't need these crazy measures. But as I noticed that, I also noticed that as they continue to tighten the screws of tyranny and control and taking away people's rights and freedoms, this presence, if you want to call it the divine presence, is really getting very, very clear. So as obvious as the evil is manifesting, so is the Christ, the Buddha, the unconditional love of the you name it, all these different masterful beings that have come to the planet. They're manifesting. It's manifesting.
Yes.
I read this article. I think it's very Rudolf Steiner. I think it's Steiner. And he talks about that when Christ manifests, when Christ comes, evil is manifest to a great degree.
It's last screaming performance of, it's like it's going to resurrect its head even more.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, look at what's happening. Don't turn a blind eye to what's happening. Face the darkness, but at the same time, don't miss the opportunity to bask in the glory of prayers are being answered, that prophecies are being fulfilled, that we've waited eons for.
I know. I'm like ecstatic to be alive right now. I don't know about you, but I'm ecstatic to be alive. Whatever that ending looks like for me in this incarnation, I'm fine with, but I feel like this is a wonderful time to be alive.
I feel like I've heard so many times the expression, I would die on this hill. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people are feeling, is that they're willing, they don't want to die. It's not like they're strapping a bomb to their chest to kill innocent people and for some religious fervor. They're not seeking death. But if this course of action that I'm following in the integrity of my heart should lead to my death, I'm okay with that. Yep.
Me too.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep. Except we have a lot more guns in the United States.
Yes, and I think that's a very good thing, provided that they're used responsibly and for this very moment in time now. That's why it was written into the American Constitution. And that's why Trudeau, who's a total globalist puppet, took away 1,500 different kinds of guns in Canada. Not that Canadians had a lot of guns, but that passed through Parliament and became a thing before anybody could even say, what just happened?
Yeah, it's like things are put into law without any checks and balances.
Exactly. That's not law. That's not the legal system. So even the law, the way the law is supposed to be carried out and has been traditionally to a certain degree, I mean, the law itself is corrupt and based on commercial admiral law. I don't know if you're familiar with all that stuff, like the law of the maritime law, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I'm just sort of trying to wrap my brain around all that stuff. It's kind of new to me, but I understand it to a certain extent. So the law, what we know as our legal system, is not really the real law, the law that's based in the divine rights that each human has. That's the true law. This is the corporal law that, the courts are really just corporations.
And our birth certificate makes us a corporation
That's
that they
right.
extract our money and energy from.
Yeah, we're like commodities that they trade amongst themselves. Like they go together, they light their big fat stogies, all the psychopaths that play poker with our birth certificates and stuff like that. So honestly, I it could be a little bit like that. So yeah, I feel what the spiritual bypassers that you're talking about, they're afraid to talk about the darkness. But when I talk about it, it doesn't frighten me. It makes me feel very alive and very good inside myself. Like, this is okay, what's going on. We're going to be okay, regardless of what happens in the future or how it happens. Ultimately, I know that evil has no true kingdom. It's not for nothing that the so-called devil is called the Lord of Illusions, because he has no true kingdom to rule over. The only true kingdom is the kingdom of God. So the energies of evil, they have to manipulate people into trying to believe in something which is not real. That can't last. That can't last.
I think that God has won, and we're just watching it all play out.
Okay, well, that's deep. That's super deep.
Watching it play out, maybe to awaken more people. I don't know, but yes. And I wanted to go back to the spiritual bypassing, because living in Sedona, I mean, that's been a challenge. Trying to navigate that, because people who you thought were spiritually aware truly are not.
No, they're living in a narrow band of spirituality, which is another one of those things that I've been realizing in the last couple of years, is another way that the tyranny, the plan to control humanity has infiltrated into. Because if the spiritual books in the New Age bookstores, that are being promoted by Oprah, are just keeping people in this narrow band of, butterflies and rainbows, and not teaching people how to face the darkness, then they have very weak spiritual power, these people.
Yeah. I would want to illuminate the darkness, because many of them are of the darkness.
That's right. That's why they're attracted to the light, is to counterbalance the level of darkness that they have within. Absolutely, 100%. It's like they're all lit up in a way, but then there's this very tense feeling of conflict in them that they're not facing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not facing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I totally agree with all of that.
That's good. That's cool. This is great. I appreciate it. As usual, I love how we chat and just float through these different topics. I think we've touched on a lot of important things tonight. I'm glad that we have had this chance.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was wonderful. And I just hope more people choose love over fear.
Yeah. That could be your concluding statement. You don't have to say anything else, but would you like to, anything that's on your mind or in your heart that you'd like to just share beyond that, to just sort of wrap things up?
I did want to speak about the school idea that you were mentioning. I think that's a brilliant idea, and I would love to be a part of that. And I know I have a group of other naturopathic doctors that we text each other. Actually, one of them just texted on this feed as we were talking.
Yeah.
And I think that this would be something of interest for a lot of awakened NDs, to kind of get the message out there, and it will attract the correct people to your mission.
Excellent. Excellent. And, this is definitely, I want to say, not only my mission, but there is an aspect of this being my mission. Now, when I say it's my mission, I don't mean it's only my mission. I mean, there's many others involved, but it needn't be the only endeavor to start another school to live in the harmony of nature. You know,
Yes.
I think we could start popping up schools all over the place, and that will be beholden to the most important energies and the most important factors, that they don't have to be accredited. Like there's such a weakening of our profession that has happened by trying to gain credibility by appearing like conventional medical doctors, when that profession is, you know, is really struggling to do anything that's very helpful for people's health. So yeah, so thank you, absolutely. I'm very excited. I'm very excited about this new school. And if it's the right time, which I think it is, then those doors and the energies, the supportive energies of the universe are going to kind of collaborate with us in helping manifest this, so that students can learn the medicine without fear, with full integrity, in harmony with the tenets and the philosophy of our medicine, and from the elders of our profession. You know, like there's no elders in the colleges anymore. Like that's the most important factor for a profession, is its elders.
No, like our school canned like the 3 greatest elders we had at the school years ago. And it's like, they were the foundation of the school.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's all part of the agenda, right?
Yeah. Yep. Just, just churn and burn, and keep plugging it, pumping in the new blood, just, to give them just information to make them get by, in the profession.
100%. 100%. So if I will be in touch with you, I'll let you know. We'll probably be having like a Zoom meeting about the new school, if you'd like to get involved in any way, just to, maybe even if not necessarily you, but anybody, just to go, yeah, like this sounds like an awesome idea, and do nothing more. That's all you want to do is say, yeah. Then you're welcome to come to the Zoom meeting. And I'm gonna send that out. So if you're interested in that, anybody, just shoot me an email, say, hey, Dr. Moshe, I'm interested, and I will get your name and your email on a list, and then you'll be welcome to come to the Zoom meeting when we meet about this.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah.
Thank you.
In closing, can I give a shout out to the naturopathic doctors that are out there that have been my rock as well. They know who they are. And I also wanted to give a shout out to all my ladies here in Sedona and their family. And I love you. I love them. I love everybody. Just got love coming out of the heart. I feel like it's all going to be good. It's just going to be a really tough birthing process.
Good. I like that. It's true. It's true. It's going to challenge us to the core, each of us in our own way.
It's going to rock us. Yep.
Start doing your Kegel exercises. You strengthen that core. And yes, absolutely. So thank you for that shout out. That was beautiful. I love that. And thanks again, Doc, for being on Ndft for Truth. I really appreciate your wisdom and your heart and all that you've had to share.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Awesome. Me too. Okay. Adios.
Adios.
Adios. I'm gonna